The time compass. The Aztec Empire, Part 1. Let's take a look at our planet. Where North and South America meet is a region which is now Mexico and Central America. It is home to jungles, mountains, rainforests, and one of the most mysterious and mighty cultures that we know of. This powerful civilization dominated the entire region hundreds of years ago. They were known as the Aztecs. The Aztecs had a powerful army that conquered neighboring peoples. And in just a couple of centuries, they ruled over Mesoamerica. But let's go back to the beginning of the story, to a time when earlier civilizations lived in this part of the world, leaving us magnificent temples and art. First came the Olmecs and the Zapotecs. And from a branch of this culture emerged a majestic civilization called Teotihuacan. But then something began to happen. These great civilizations, who were so powerful, began to disappear from the region. What was happening to make them vanish?
Perhaps they were all being abducted by aliens.
Well, probably not. But no one knows for sure why they disappeared. With the fall of the great Teotihuacan, a turbulent and chaotic era began. Various peoples appeared on the scene and began fighting each other for control. That is, until the Aztecs arrived from the north in the 12th century. The Aztecs managed to dominate all the neighboring peoples. And soon they ruled over the entire region. Tenochtitlan. The Aztecs were great warriors and brought many of their neighbors into the Aztec Empire. At the height of its power, the Aztec Empire included 38 different states and numerous different peoples. With all these different areas and peoples to rule over, the Aztecs needed a capital from which to organize and rule their subjects. And so, in 1325, they created Tenochtitlan, a small village that in time would become a legendary city, the center of an empire that was both powerful and feared. Tenochtitlan was a very special city. It was built on a small island in the center of a great lake. Its streets were made of canals, which connected the city with fields, urban centers, and other lakes. The citizens used the canals like roads, and like most cities, Tenochtitlan was full of people. In fact, its population reached 250,000 inhabitants. If you looked closely toward the horizon, you'd be able to see the mountains surrounding the city. The Aztecs revered mountains, with their peaks reaching up to the sky where the gods lived. The Aztecs built around 25 pyramid-shaped temples that imitated the mountains. These temples were designed to instill fear and respect amongst the population. And ceremonies involving human sacrifices were carried out on their stone altars. Aztec diet. Do you like corn, chocolate, peanuts, or tomatoes? Well, guess where they came from?
The Aztecs!
The peoples of Mesoamerica ate many healthy and tasty foods. And we have them to thank for many of the abundant crops we have today. For instance, they were the first people to grow crops of corn. The Aztecs would use this corn in many different dishes, including making something like the tortillas Mexicans make today. They were also the first to discover chocolate. They also had beans, pumpkin, melon, red and green chili peppers, and avocados. We owe all these foods to the former inhabitants of Mesoamerica, like the Aztecs. But some of the things the Aztecs ate were a little more strange, like their taste for insects and even dogs. In fact, the Aztecs even ate worms, like myself. And don't forget my relatives, like grasshoppers, ants, and larvae. which were also a major part of the Aztec diet. If you think that's gross, I assure you, we're delicious. Did I say delicious? Not me. No, I'm not. No, wait, let me out. Let me out. Chinampas. Oh, this is terrible. I don't have enough food to feed my little boy.
I'm still hungry, Mommy.
The Aztecs' growing empire meant that it started to become difficult to grow enough food for everyone to eat. The problem was that there wasn't enough land for growing crops. A food shortage that lasted a long time hit the Aztecs in the year 1265. It was then that Acatonali, the leader of the empire, proposed the most ingenious idea to the Board of Elders. His idea was to put stakes into the lake to build artificial islands, creating land for growing crops. These artificial islands were called chinampas, and they helped to convert large swampy areas into fertile land. Their structure also included an irrigation network, and for fertilizer they used human excrement. These chinampas worked so well that a family could farm twice the amount of food they needed for themselves. And the extra food could then be used to feed the empire. Life in combat. The Aztecs were almost always at war. One of the aims of going into combat was to capture warriors from enemy tribes for human sacrifices. They believed that the fiercer the warrior they captured, the more satisfied their gods would be. The Aztecs went into battle wearing elaborate masks and costumes representing gods and animals, which made them seem like terrifying creatures when they went into battle. The Aztecs knew that fear was a great way to win a battle.
Boo!
Although they were fearsome warriors, war and domination was not the only thing the Aztecs cared about. They were also very interested in commerce, and they established strong trading links with neighboring peoples. Many goods and crafts were produced by the Aztecs and sold in other cities. And Aztec traders were very busy traveling the land buying and selling goods. There was also another benefit. The traders, in their travels, were able to hear all the gossip and find out what was going on throughout the empire. So the traders had a secret role. They acted as spies for the Aztec ruler. Let's dig a little deeper with our time compass and find out about other inventions that improved farming. When the last ice age ended, about 10,000 years ago, the few people who had survived this terrible age began to wander from place to place in search of food and shelter. A group of nomad tribes reached Mesopotamia around the year 6000 BC, and there they learned to plant seeds and harvest crops. Since they no longer needed to go out in search of food, they settled into houses and formed the first settlements in history. The Egyptians used all their ingenuity around the year 3500 BC to turn the flooding of the Nile to their own advantage. They invented an elaborate irrigation system in which the entire community participated and benefited. This gave rise to jobs like surveyors, who were like modern engineers. Surveyors measured land and planned how to build irrigation channels. Around 300 BC, the Romans perfected a method to transport water from mountain springs to fields and city centers. These famous Roman aqueducts were built with great precision. Water was taken from the main source and transported for many kilometers along channels. They were built both above and underground and had a very gentle slope that guaranteed correct water flow. These Roman aqueducts were built so well that some are still transporting water to the city of Rome to this day. Coming up in the next episode, the Aztec Empire, Part 2. The Aztecs believed that one day the world would end violently, and that all people would die in a dramatic manner. They had to make constant sacrifices to the gods to postpone this tragic end. And so, to maintain the order of the world and have good harvests, the priests had to sacrifice many animals, and sometimes even people. The priests would offer the hearts of the victims to the gods. And dying in these ceremonies was generally thought to be a great honor.